all you big, beautiful brains out there. Today, we're going to talk about sleep. Before we get started, take a minute to subscribe to Psy vs. Psy. Help out your friendly neighborhood psychologist while I tell you all about sleep. I'll also answer today's big question. Are you conscious while you're sleeping? Now, when we talk about sleep, we can split things into two huge categories. The stuff that we know and the stuff that we don't know. Let's run through the stuff we do know first. It's way easier. The first big thing we know is how we fall asleep. There's a teeny tiny gland right behind your thalamus in the very center of your brain called the pineal gland. That tiny gland produces a hormone called melatonin, which regulates our sleep. And that gland doesn't really start working quite right until about 3 to 6 months after you're born. If you've ever known anyone with a new baby that just won't go to sleep, that pineal gland is probably not quite working right yet. Your pineal gland also doesn't work quite as well the older that you get. Anyone with grandparents or great-grandparents awake really early in the morning, their underactive pineal gland is probably why. The pineal gland reacts to light and produces more melatonin when it starts getting darker. We know because sometimes people get tumors on their pineal gland, called pinealomas, and their melatonin production becomes really irregular. Another big thing we know is that your sleep isn't the same throughout the night. The reason that we know is actually one of my favorite stories ever about a parent bringing his kid to work. So way back in the 1950s, this grad student at the University of Chicago named Eugene Asrinsky was working really late and brought his 8-year-old son, Armand, with him. So Dad was there working with this machine that was kind of like an early EEG that could measure things like eye movements and brain activity. So of course, like any parent does when their kid's at work with them, you let them play with the stuff at work. So he hooked him up to the machine. I should probably note here that this was perfectly safe. The little boy could not have gotten hurt in any way, well, other than maybe by his dad being a little bit of a workaholic. So Dad Eugene kept working, and little Armand fell asleep with the electrodes from this machine still on his tiny cute little head. And that's when his dad noticed something scientifically spectacular. Not only was his little boy's brain active, but it was as active as if he were awake and alert. His eyes were moving around, just as if he could actually see through his closed eyelids. Eugene Asrinsky had accidentally discovered what we call rapid eye movement, or REM sleep. And REM sleep is critical for your brain. Most people who study sleep agree that REM sleep is when we dream. It's important for consolidating and retaining memories, and even plays a part in helping us learn. So, it makes sense if we have REM sleep, we also have non-REM sleep. Non-REM sleep is divided up into 4 big stages. Stage 1 takes around 5 to 10 minutes. That's when your eyes are closed, but you're still pretty easy to wake up. In stage 2, your heart rate slows down and your body temperature drops. And this stage usually takes between 10 to 25 minutes. Stage 3 and 4 kind of get lumped together, unless you're looking at a specific brainwave activity. But stages 3 and 4 are when you're getting really deep sleep, and it's pretty hard to wake you up. The entire sleep cycle, both REM and non-REM, takes about an hour and a half to complete, and then you repeat the cycle the entire night. Now, here's the stuff we don't know. We don't know why we sleep. After, forever of human sleeping, we don't know why. Scientists have a few guesses. One is that sleep could be adaptive. Our ancestors who were able to sleep well and in this same type of sleep pattern were more likely to survive and reproduce because they were well rested. Another reason could be because of predation. That's predators. Being outside alone in the dark at night is terrifying. And for our early ancestors, it was very, very dangerous. Frankly, there's just less of a chance that you'll get eaten by something that goes bump in the night if you are quietly staying still and being asleep. What we do know is true is that different kinds of animals seem to sleep differently based on the types of environmental pressures that they're under. For instance, most cetaceans, like whales and dolphins, sleep with parts of their brain at a time so that they can be alert to do other things like swim to the surface of the water and breathe. Breathing is also important. Another thing we don't know is why we dream. People have studied and analyzed and stressed over dreams for years, but science doesn't have a definite answer yet on why we do it. Pretty prominent psychologists have theories, though, like Sigmund Freud thought we dreamed as a way of wish fulfillment. So what you want to do in real life, but you can't, your brain makes you dream that you can. Some psychologists think that it's about practicing for things that could happen. Like, say, have you ever dreamed about having a big test or presentation? That's probably why. Your brain may have been trying to help you get ready. Another popular explanation is that dreams could be going back over prior events to try to learn from them. Like, say you had a really bad first date, then later you dream and that first date really turns into a nightmare, like literally nightmare. If we're ever going to figure out why we dream, the chances are we're going to need the help of people who are called lucid dreamers. Lucid dreamers are people who can, believe it or not, be aware of when they're dreaming, and then they can control what they do in that dream. Their help could be the key to figuring out why we dream. So now, the million-dollar question, are you conscious while you're sleeping? In our video about consciousness, we talked about how being conscious means that you're aware of what's going on in your own head all around you. Well, we're definitely aware of what's going on in our own head when we're dreaming and asleep. Most of us do remember our dreams and the thoughts and our feelings during those dreams. But are we aware of what's going on around us? Your gut probably says no. We've all seen people who can sleep no matter what seems to be going on around them. But don't you usually wake up when you hear your alarm? Ever been woken up by a light in your face coming in through the window? You are aware of the outside world when you're asleep. But your awareness of that outside world does seem to be somewhat diminished or different than it ordinarily does when you're awake. That's because when you're asleep, you're in a different state of consciousness. Still conscious, but just in a different way than when you're awake. If you want to know more about some of these other states of consciousness, including answering that other question, can you be hypnotized? Make sure you subscribe to this channel, Psy vs. Psy, so you can get all of our other videos and you can start learning all about the science of psychology. Until next time, keep thinking, and I'll see y'all later. Bye. Hey, you know what's fun? We are. Subscribe to Psy vs. Psy. We're not kidding. We need your subs. It'd really help us out.